Welcome to DividedCity.us. I'm Tom Grant. We're here tonight with Mallory Millender, who is the co-chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee on Race Relations here in Augusta. Thanks for joining us, Mallory.
Thank you.
Tell me, why does that committee exist?
Well, the committee was appointed by Bob Young, and it was on the heels of the grand jury report and that kind of thing back around 2001 or 2002.
The one that leveled some criticism of the procurement department, among other things?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And the Justice Department, the Community Relations Department, a division of the Justice Department, was brought in to help us to get started. And our charge was to identify racism wherever it exists in Augusta, to make recommendations for alleviating it, to generally promote racial harmony, and ultimately try to come up with one Augusta, which is a big charge.
So you've been working on that for how long now then?
This is 7 years now.
7 years.
Yeah, and it's been difficult for a couple of reasons. One is that we have no funding at all, just zero funding. So we're dependent upon volunteers, and volunteers come and go. And you can get new people, but the new people didn't know what took place prior to that. All of the people that you've interviewed, that kind of information, they're not privy to. So that the other thing is that over a period of time, you amass a lot of material and information. A lot of people have found it difficult to manage that information and put it in the form of a report. And that's what we're struggling to do now so that we can bring some closure to this. On the other hand, some other things have happened that make it necessary for us to continue to exist. For instance, the Human Relations Commission no longer exists as it did before. The EEO office, it no longer exists. Yes. Yvonne Gentry's agency effectively no longer exists. So there is a need for somebody to speak up about racial issues. So we went to Mayor Copenhaver and we asked him about the Blue Ribbon Committee taking on that role, and that was not a part of our charge as such. And he thought that that was a good idea. And we are going to fairly soon have a press conference announcing that new responsibility and new role for the Blue Ribbon Committee.
So you clearly define that again for me, what your role will be?
Well, we will not be able to investigate discrimination cases like the Human Relations Commission did, for instance. However, we could take a situation like Cherry Tree Crossing and look at that, review that, and give an informed opinion about whether there was justice there, whether there was racism involved there, that kind of thing. So that's basically what I see us doing, just having some basis for making the statements, since our original charge didn't give us that.
I have to say, I'm kind of surprised that the mayor didn't turn to somebody like your committee to ask that very question.
Well, I think that at some point those questions will be raised.
Let's talk about, in those years that you've been looking at it, are there things you've seen that were surprising to you?
Well, what has surprised me has been the denial of racism. 99% of the people that we've interviewed said that there's no racism in Augusta.
Now, I happen to be one of those people who you interviewed, and I didn't say that.
99%, I didn't say all.
Why do they say that? I mean, how long have you lived here, Mallory?
I've lived here since 1960. Well, I came here as a student in 1961. I didn't consider myself a resident, although I lived here throughout the time that I went to Payne College. And I've essentially been here since that time. There are times I've gone away to study and that kind of thing, but.
So you were here, were you here during the riots?
I was here during the riots. I was here well before the riots.
Okay, and do you think that racism still exists in this country?
Of course it does.
Then why are people denying it?
I don't know. And the Blue Ribbon Committee has talked about that a great deal. We don't know whether they fear reprisal from their jobs. I don't know. Mainly when people do admit it, it's black people who are racist and discriminating against white people. Otherwise, there is no racism in Augusta, according to the people that we've interviewed.
Let me ask about that. Have many white people taken this charge of racism and tried to turn it against African Americans, and has it been fair for them to do that? Well,
to answer the first part, absolutely that has been done. And certainly I don't think that it's fair to do that. In the best situation, they tend to project every situation as equally racist from the black community versus the white community. That can be true, but it certainly is not true generally, I don't think. It's one of those situations where it's hard to get honesty. And the other thing is that people don't want to talk about race. They will tell you that we have cultural problems, we have sexism, you got every other ism except racism.
But one of the things I want to point out was that you have lived in many other places. You've experienced other cultures. What distinguishes Augusta with regards to its, relations between races?
Well, Augusta is not atypical of other southern cities, I don't think. I think that the fact that the racial balance is fairly close, although it's getting blacker, although that too is starting to change. And the nature of the commission in terms of the 5-5 racial balance, it brings to light a lot of the divisions between blacks and whites, not necessarily racial divisions. That is to say that a lot of the things that the black commissioners are fighting for have to do with economics and the economics of the black community, which are quite different from West Augusta and some other parts of the area. So that while the vote may be racial, the things that they are fighting about are not. Certainly, people who have difficulty walking into their house when it rains have a different problem from somebody else who wants a fine arts center. Okay? That's not a racial thing. That's an economic, human issue in terms of meeting basic needs before you deal with some of the finer things in life, which we need. There's no argument there. Certainly, if you're going to attract industry and business to your community, if you're going to attract money to your community, you have to have a nice community. But at the same time, you can't ignore basic human needs. At the same time, you got to find a way to balance the two.
But disproportionately, those lower income basic human needs that need to be addressed are the needs of African Americans in this community.
There's no doubt about that.
Okay. We'll be back to talk about that more. We're here with Mallory Millender, and we'll be back right after this break.
For the best in tires, Butler is at your service. Drive safe and save on the most popular brands. For a limited time, Butler will beat or match any advertised price on Michelin tires. Butler is first in Augusta with nitrogen technology, improving gas mileage and increasing tire life by as much as 25%. AAA approved, Butler Automotive is the place for Michelin tires. For miles of smiles, Butler is at your service with 3 convenient locations.
Buy this beautiful home in National Hills and get a paid vacation to Paris every year. At least that's what the current owners did with their master's rental income. And the overseas renters would love to continue with the new owner. 3 bedrooms and a possible 4th, 2 baths, hot tub, fireplace, living room, and large great room. Only $149.9. Call Bob Steed, 706-504-3525. It's a great home. At Grady Abrams Art Studio in Martinez, Grady Abrams is offering the art deal of a lifetime. Order now and Abrams will paint a 16 by 20 oil portrait of your church pastor or loved one for only $100. Bring your photo to Abrams Studio at 814 Point Comfort Road in Martinez. Email abramsgrady@msn.com or call 706-855-5968. A portrait by Abrams is something your family will treasure forever. What are you drinking? Under Georgia law, you can bottle processed well water and call it spring water. Only the source gets real spring water from Daniel Spring, high in the hills of Pageland, South Carolina. When it comes to water, consider the source. The Source by the Haunted Pillar in downtown Augusta, 706-774-0020. The Source. Welcome back to DividedCity.us. I'm Tom Grant. We're here with Mallory Millender, the co-chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee on Race Relations for the City of Augusta. Mallory, we've been talking about economics and how this racial division often seems to be an economic issue. Is there a feeling among African Americans that the money flows only one way to whites in this community?
There is that feeling. And again, that's I think a part of the larger issue with the T Center and some of the other problems that we have, or that's why they insist on some economic benefits coming to the Laney Walker area, that kind of thing. Yes, what I'm talking about is that I think that many black voters do not go to the polls because they have seen when there were like 4 blacks on the city council at that time out of 16. Mm-hmm. And their needs were not met. They've seen it when there was a majority black on the city council and their needs still were not met. And it looks like their needs are not going to be met from their perspective. So they say, why vote? It's not going to matter. They're not going to deal with my problems. My plight is not going to get any better anyway. They're going to do what they want to, and that's the feeling. I mean, it's an expression of despair.